She stormed in while I was playing my violin well, trying to. My nerves were shot, my heart pounding from the nightmare my life had become, and that instrument was the last thing that still listened to me. But Emily Carter didn't care. She barged into the room, grabbed my shoulder from behind, spun me around like I was some prop in her personal drama, and slapped me so hard across the face my ears rang like church bells. Her red nails left a sting, but that wasn't what burned the most. What burned was the reason: her lover and their illegitimate daughter had been in a car accident, and she came in here like a crazed widow, convinced I had something to do with it. "Was it you, James?" she screamed. "Did you hire someone to hurt Ryan and Zoe?" Ryan Kim, her white moonlight, her old flame who had miraculously come back from being a vegetable. Zoe, her out-of-wedlock daughter, she kept parading in my house like it was some kind of twisted family sitcom. I looked her dead in the eyes. That slap didn't just sting, it shattered the last piece of my patience, a patience I'd stitched together for over 2 decades. The violin in my hand suddenly felt heavier. I raised it and smashed it across her head. She staggered back, stunned. My aim was off. I am left-handed and the swing lacked power, but the message landed. She clutched her head, stumbled, and stared at me like I was some monster she'd just unmasked. "Have you lost your damn mind?" she shouted, still swaying. I stepped forward, my voice calm but razor-sharp. "Hit me again and see what happens. You'll be the one needing a new face." She stared at me, stunned into silence, as if she finally realized the docile man she married wasn't so docile anymore. "I warned you, Emily," I hissed. "I said I'd leave Ryan and Zoe alone as long as they didn't provoke me. But they've been showing up at every damn family gathering, every press event, flaunting their existence like a badge of honor. Don't think I'm stupid. If I wanted them gone, I'd do it right. They wouldn't have survived." She tried to throw that classic Carter family superiority back at me. "You're a nobody, James. You've always done anything for profit. Don't act righteous now." I laughed, a dry, sharp laugh. "Coming from you. You're the one who parades around in prayer beads like some virtuous monk while sneaking around with your first love. You think your daddy's money absolves you of being a hypocrite?" Her face contorted with rage and disbelief. Maybe it shocked her that I finally spoke without flinching. "You think I married you because I loved you?" I continued. "Your dad knew I was the perfect political marriage. My family needed your money, and your family needed a puppet. You chose me because I looked like Ryan Kim before the accident. That was it. Don't act like we had something real." She clenched her fists. "So what now? You want a divorce?" "Hell yes," I snapped. "Go back to your little love nest. You'll be doing everyone a favor." She turned and stormed out, slamming the door like a child losing an argument. The housekeeper, who'd been watching silently from the corner with a tray of tea, placed it down quickly and left without a word. I looked down at the broken violin in my hands. It felt symbolic. Me marriage, my pride, my life splintered into pieces. I used to think staying was for family. For honor. But all I'd done was become the clown in her tragedy. I met Emily through a business deal. Her family, the Carters, needed a clean-cut, obedient partner. Mine, the Walkers, needed funds. My father had just fallen into a coma from a car accident. My mother was already shacking up with her new boyfriend, Harold Thompson, and my siblings were too young to fend for themselves. So I said yes to the deal. I married Emily Carter. For money. For survival. Not love. She had always been strange, cold, detached, said she practiced abstinence and chanted Buddhist sutras. I thought it was guilt over her old lover's accident. Ryan Kim had been her everything until one night they got into a car crash. He ended up in a coma for years. During that time, she married me and wore her widowhood like armor. Everyone thought she was noble. I knew better. She just didn't want to lose the Carter inheritance. She couldn't marry a vegetable. And she couldn't be alone. So she married me. Then Ryan woke up in our 3rd year of marriage. And everything fell apart. She didn't even try to hide it. She let him into every Carter event like he was the real husband, introduced their daughter Zoe as her own, let the press run with the story while I stood there like an idiot. I endured all of it. Because the time wasn't right. I wanted revenge, but I wanted it clean. Then came the call. My phone rang that night. It was Lee, one of my father's caretakers. "James, your daughter stopped breathing. You need to get to the hospital." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. I rushed out, barely able to breathe. When I got there, they were still trying to revive him. The beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic, the lifeless body on the bed. I'll never forget that moment. They couldn't save him. My father was gone. And Harold had been there earlier that day. Said cruel things, stirred up trouble. Just like he did 5 years ago. Just like he did when my father's accident was an accident. Something inside me snapped again. This time, it wasn't just the marriage. It was everything. I ordered a full autopsy. 2 days later, the results came back. Been injected with something. A medical mishap, they called it. I called it murder. The funeral was quiet at first, just me, my siblings, the crematorium staff. But then the vultures showed up. The Walker family. My Aunt Laura Nelson. Harold Thompson. Even Emily came. She stood there in black like she had any right to mourn my father. And that's when I lost it. I confronted Harold right there. Kicked him across the funeral hall in front of everyone. They gasped. "James Walker. Are you insane?" Laura shrieked. "No," I said calmly. "Just done pretending." I exposed everything. I outed Harold and Laura's role in my father's accident, revealed their corruption, even spilled the truth about Vanessa Nelson, Laura's daughter who had gotten a heart transplant from a living person. The room exploded in chaos. People gasped, some left, others just stared. I didn't care. I wanted them ruined. I wanted the world to see them for who they really were. Emily stood to the side, expression unreadable. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked later. "Why didn't you call me?" I stared at my father's ashes. "You're just my wife on paper. Not in heart. You don't deserve to be told." Her face fell, but she said nothing. The war had begun. And this time, I wasn't fighting to survive. I was fighting to win. After the funeral, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Not because of grief I could handle, but because of the fury. A suffocating, bone-deep rage that crawled under my skin and demanded blood. My dad was dead. Gone because of a deliberate injection, because someone, most likely Harold Thompson, decided that his existence was inconvenient. And what did the Walker family do? They showed up with fake tears and polished shoes, acting like their presence was some grand gesture of unity. I had enough. I released everything. The autopsy report, the footage from 5 years ago when Harold started worming his way into my mother's life, the medical records, and even a copy of the funeral confrontation. All of it was uploaded through a media team I'd been preparing for years. My tech company, Walker Dynamics, had been a sleeping beast, hiding in plain sight, playing dead while I silently stacked weapons. Now it was time to use them. We bought trending slots, used influencer accounts, leaked the truth in pieces like chapters of a thriller novel. First came the headline, "Walker Patriarch Dies Under Suspicious Circumstances, Family Tied to Illegal Organ Transplants." Then came the receipts. Social media exploded. People were tagging news outlets, demanding justice, flooding the official Walker Group page with curses and boycott threats. My Aunt Laura Nelson tried to do PR cleanup. Too late. The public didn't want explanations, they wanted heads. Especially after the post about Vanessa Nelson went viral, heiress received heart from living donor. The netizens went feral. Comments ranged from, "Is this a Netflix drama?" to "Guillotine them all." I didn't stop there. I dropped the backstory of that heart, the 22-year-old man who got hit by a car and mysteriously lost his heart while still breathing. His mom had gone insane after losing him, and now, knowing the truth, she'd become a living ghost. I watched the story unfold like a conductor in front of an orchestra of flames. When I got home with my siblings, our driver nervously informed us, "Sir, Mr. Carter and Miss Emily Carter are waiting inside." I rolled my eyes. Of course they were. These people never missed a chance to crash the party. As soon as we stepped through the door, Gregory Carter was already shaking his head. "James, why bring ashes home? You should have stored them at the funeral home. It's bad luck, didn't you know that?" "This is my house," I said coldly. "If I want to turn it into a shrine, that's my choice. You don't get to comment." "Don't talk to me like that," he snapped. "We weren't even informed about the funeral. Do you know how humiliating that was?" "Humiliating?" I laughed. "Your daughter paraded her lover and illegitimate kid through my marriage for years, but I'm the one who's embarrassing the family." Emily sat there quietly, legs crossed, prayer beads twirling like always, like she was above it all. Her silence had always been her weapon. "If there's no business to discuss," I said, "you're free to leave." "Wait." Her father stood up. "You're not thinking of divorcing, are you?" I turned to Emily, met her eyes, and said it loud and clear, "Let's draw up a divorce agreement. Get it signed. I'm done." Emily looked at me like I was some rebellious child. "You're emotional. Your father just passed. I'll forgive that. But don't make rash decisions you'll regret." "This isn't a tantrum," I said flatly. "This is closure." "No," she said calmly, her voice dripping with quiet threat. "I don't do divorce. Only widowhood." Her dad paled. "You made those videos, didn't you? You're the one who destroyed Walker Group's name." "And what if I did?" I asked. "It's not your family." They left after that, but the air stayed heavy. Jessica stormed in after, full of curses. "That woman is scum. She's playing Buddhist while cheating on her husband and raising her affair baby in your face. And she has the nerve to say you're in the wrong." My sister had always been the blunt one. "You think I don't know?" I said. "But she's not worth my emotions anymore." That night, I sat in front of my dad's ashes, poured him a glass of his favorite whiskey, and promised him, "I'll make them pay. All of them." The next morning, the Walker Group stock crashed. News broke that Harold Thompson and Laura Nelson had been detained. Turns out, not only had they arranged my dad's death, but they were also laundering funds from medical kickbacks. Vanessa's transplant was only the beginning. Every project they touched was under investigation. The hashtag Walker family scandal hit #1 on trending in under 2 hours. Olivia Reed, CEO of Avalon Ventures and the woman who'd quietly supported me through all of this, sent me a message, Phase 1, success. She had been the only person outside of my siblings who knew what I'd planned. We met at a private club that night. I needed to breathe. She poured me a drink, leaned back, and asked, "How does it feel to burn it all down?" "Strangely peaceful," I said. "Like watching termites eat through old wood. You don't even feel bad it was rotting anyway." "And Emily?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "Still won't sign," I said. "She thinks if she waits long enough, I'll give in." Olivia smirked. "So what's your next move?" "Court," I said simply. "She can keep clinging, but the rope's already snapped." She nodded approvingly. "Good. I'll back you." The next few days blurred into a montage of chaos. Gregory Carter tried to arrange meetings. Emily sent text after text, some angry, some desperate, some cold as ice. I ignored them all. Then the internet delivered the next blow. Someone had leaked a video of me being helped into a car by Olivia outside the Avalon Club. The angle, the lighting, the narrative, it looked like an affair. Walker Air caught cheating, the headline screamed. My phone blew up. Emily called me non-stop. When I finally opened her message, it read, "You really want to humiliate me like this? You're trying to start a war." I didn't respond. I grabbed the divorce papers I had pre-signed and drove back to the Carter estate. She was sitting in the living room with Ryan, Kim and Zoe when I arrived. The moment I stepped in, Zoe pointed at me and yelled, "The bad man is here." She scurried into Ryan's arms, who looked at me with faux innocence, like he hadn't just been the snake in my house for years. "Really, James," Ryan said, "you don't have to scare the child. She's just a kid." "She's your kid," I snapped. "Not mine. And her being a brat reflects on your parenting. You always hated her," Emily said coldly. "That's why this marriage failed." "No," I said, "this marriage failed because you brought your ex and your affair baby into my life and expected me to smile about it." I stepped forward and dropped the papers on the table. "Sign it." Emily didn't touch them. "You're doing this because of Olivia Reed?" "I'm doing this because I finally stopped pretending," I said. "You think marriage is a cage, and I was the docile bird. But guess what, Emily, I am out." "I'll never agree," she hissed. "Then I'll see you in court," I replied, turning my back and walking out as Ryan tried to comfort her and Zoe continued crying like a gremlin. The papers would be filed. The internet had already chosen sides. The Carter name would soon be buried under the rubble of its own lies. And me? I was just getting started. The court hearing was scheduled for a rainy Thursday, fitting, considering it felt like I was finally burying a ghost I'd lived with for 6 years. Emily Carter walked into the courtroom dressed like she was heading to a red carpet event, sleek black dress, flawless makeup, and her ever-present prayer beads like some sick badge of false virtue. Ryan Kim sat in a gallery with Zoe on his lap, both looking smug, like they'd already won something. Maybe they thought this was a custody hearing. Joke's on them, there was nothing of mine left for them to take. My lawyers had prepped every angle. Evidence, screenshots, timelines, and those lovely little clips of Emily publicly introducing Ryan as my soulmate and calling Zoe our little angel, while still legally my wife. The judge was an older man who didn't seem to like drama, but his eyes narrowed the moment he read the file. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "you're refusing the divorce on what grounds?" Emily smiled gently, like she was auditioning for Saint of the Year. "Your Honor, I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I married James because I respected him, and I've never broken my vows." My lawyer handed over the file before she could finish. It had the full timeline of her affair with Ryan, including the date she admitted Zoe's parentage in a magazine interview. The judge took one look, then glanced back at her. "Mrs. Carter, based on this evidence, the court finds no basis to continue this marriage." "But I still love him," she whispered. Lies roll off her tongue like rain off an umbrella. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The judgment came in swift and cold. Divorce granted. No spousal support. No division of my private assets. Everything under my name stayed mine. I walked out of that courthouse feeling 20 pounds lighter. Outside, Olivia Reed was waiting in the car, sunglasses on, arms crossed, like the boss she was. "Well?" she asked as I got in. "It's done," I said. "She's no longer my wife." "Good," she smiled, reaching across to clasp my hand. "Now maybe your face will stop looking like it carries 1,000 unpaid bills." I chuckled, the tension slowly draining from my shoulders. "We're not done yet. There's still the company." Olivia had already begun the process of acquiring majority shares in Walker Group through Shell subsidiaries and friendly investors. We weren't trying to buy it. We were trying to take it. I wanted every member of the Walker family, the aunts, uncles, cousins who stood by and let my dad Sofferto lose the safety net they'd used to trample people like me. I wanted them broke, embarrassed, and banished. Olivia moved fast. Within 3 weeks, she'd taken over enough stock to force an emergency board meeting. My Aunt Laura, who had been so smug months ago, now sat stone-faced, watching her empire crumble under a woman she once called the social climbing tech Barbie. My response? Better a Barbie than a parasite. The rest of the board didn't put up much of a fight. Too many skeletons, too little loyalty. Meanwhile, Jason Nelson, Laura's son, tried to save face by launching an internet campaign accusing me of fabricating my father's death, manipulating evidence, and destroying a good family over personal vendettas. He even tried to sell the idea that Ryan and Emily were the real victims, spinning tales about their undying love and my cold-hearted scheming. Normally, I wouldn't even waste time on clowns like him. But I was done being the bigger man. I dug through the past and dropped every skeleton he had into the open, the time he spiked a socialite's drink at a New Year's Eve party, his private messages to underage girls, his blackmail texts to contractors. The moment those receipts went public, he vanished off the internet faster than a failed influencer. But it didn't end there. Ryan Kim decided to take a swing at me too. He released a fake exposé claiming I'd been the one to orchestrate his car accident years ago, that I crashed into him out of jealousy to steal Emily and her wealth. He posted blurry traffic photos, conveniently cropped, and even a fake, anonymous witness account. The internet lost its mind again. Half of it flooded my socials with death threats, while the other half was too busy eating popcorn. I let it marinate. Let the drama build. Then I released the dashcam footage. Full, unedited. The video showed clearly that Ryan had been driving recklessly, arguing with Emily, and swerving across lanes when she tried to grab the wheel. That's what caused the crash, not me. Not sabotage. Just two fools fighting like teens in a rom-com gone wrong. That video, combined with Emily's history of lying, turned the tide back in my favor. The comments section went from, "You murderer," to, "Damn, they really tried to frame this guy." But the real moment of poetic justice came when Vanessa Nelson, Laura's daughter, was found dead. Stabbed by the mother of the boy whose heart she had stolen. The woman had spiraled into mental illness after her son's death, and when she found out the truth, she snapped. It wasn't justice, but it was karma. And it shook the Walker family to the core. Suddenly, everyone was scrambling to distance themselves. Laura was sentenced to 20 years. Jason got 3. Harold got death row. My name was no longer the one being whispered in shame, it was the one everyone feared to cross. A week later, Olivia and I sat in my new office, drinking scotch. "What's next?" she asked. "You've got your freedom. You've got your revenge. You've got the company." I looked around, thinking about my siblings who now had a future, my father who finally had peace, and the woman sitting across from me who never once asked for anything in return. "I think," I said slowly, "it's time to live again." Olivia raised her glass. "To living." I clinked mine against hers, not just as a toast but as a beginning. It had been barely a month since the court granted me the divorce and Olivia Reed completed her takeover of the Walker Group's assets when the next unexpected storm rolled in, not from the courtroom, not from a press conference, but from the internet, of course, where chaos brews like morning coffee and strangers think they know your entire life from a 10-second clip. I had just finished packing the last of my things from the Carter residence, yes, even the flowers I'd personally planted in the courtyard years ago, uprooted with surgical precision and zero nostalgia when I received a notification from my assistant, "Max, boss, you're trending again, and not in a good way." My gut dropped faster than the company's stock did last quarter. I opened the link. There it was, a blurry, shaky video showing Olivia helping me into a car outside the Avalon Club. The headline read, "Billionaire heir's secret rendezvous, cheating or business as usual." It was clickbait trash, complete with dramatic music and fake concern. But the comments were worse. "So this is the faithful husband everyone defended? He's just as trashy as the wife he divorced. Poor Emily, imagine getting dumped for a side chick." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was infuriating how quickly public opinion turns with just a half-baked rumor and a good caption. I didn't cheat. Olivia had driven me home because I was too drunk to function, period. But context never mattered to the internet. Within hours, my inbox was flooded with missed calls from Emily, her father Gregory, and even Ryan Kim, of all people. I didn't pick up a single one. I knew exactly what they wanted: to guilt me, to manipulate me, to try and reclaim some narrative after I legally buried them. Instead, I packed up the divorce papers I had filed and went straight to Emily's penthouse, not for drama, not for negotiation, but for closure. When I arrived, I wasn't expecting a full audience. But of course, there she was, perched like a statue on the living room sofa, wearing all white like some grieving widow. Ryan was lounging nearby with a smug look like he still thought he mattered, and their daughter Zoe was spinning around on her hoverboard like a gremlin high on sugar. The moment she saw me, Zoe pointed and shouted, "Bad man's back," then bolted into Ryan's arms like I was the boogeyman. "Seriously?" I said. "She's 3 and already more dramatic than her mother." "You don't have to talk to a child like that," Ryan said, playing the wounded saint. "She's just scared of you. Maybe if you didn't raise her like a prop, she'd have better social skills," I snapped. "I didn't come here for another soap opera episode." I dropped the divorce agreement on the coffee table and looked Emily in the eye. "Sign it. No more games." She stared at the documents like they were written in Martian. "So this is about Olivia," she finally said, tone cold and clipped. "You humiliated me publicly for her." "This has nothing to do with Olivia," I said calmly. "This is about 6 years of lies, manipulation, and humiliation. This is about me reclaiming my life." "I already told you I won't divorce," she said, crossing her arms. "If you want to leave me, I'll just consider you dead." "You already did," I fired back. "The moment you brought Ryan back into our lives and flaunted Zoe like a trophy, you made your choice. I'm just finally catching up." Ryan looked uncomfortable now, like the house of cards he'd been building was starting to sway. "Emily," he said cautiously, "maybe it's time to let him go. You said you didn't want to marry me because I couldn't handle your family. But if you're not going to let James go, what are you doing?" Emily didn't respond. She just clutched her prayer beads tighter like they were going to solve this mess for her. That night, I left without another word. She didn't sign, but I knew what I had to do. I filed a formal petition with the court for forced divorce proceedings. I was done waiting for her change of heart. Meanwhile, Olivia had her own problems. Our video had triggered renewed interest in her past. Journalists began digging into Avalon's projects, questioning its contracts, trying to smear her as some predatory tech tycoon. "I can handle the heat," she said with that calm confidence that somehow made everything seem manageable. "But you need to be prepared if the Carters or Walkers want to push back, they'll use this video to their advantage." "Let them," I said. "The more noise they make, the more ammo they give me in court." And they did. Emily's legal team tried to argue that I was morally unfit, that I had abandoned my marriage, and caused public embarrassment. I brought receipts. Every party she attended with Ryan, every media interview where she claimed Zoe as their love child, every photo of them hand in hand at Carter family dinners while I stood in the background like a forgotten waiter. The judge didn't even blink. The forced divorce was granted. Emily left the courtroom without a word, but her eyes said it all: rage, disbelief, and the kind of prideful humiliation that eats people from the inside out. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just walked away and closed that chapter forever. Back home, Olivia was waiting with takeout, her hair in a messy bun, and no makeup on. She looked at me like I was a real person, not a pawn or a title or a tool. "So you're really free now?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Finally." "Good," she smiled, then handed me a pair of chopsticks. "Because you owe me 3 dinners, a beach trip, and maybe just maybe shot at being the first person to call you my man without irony." I laughed, for real this time. Not because it was funny, but because it felt good. Real. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was living. It had been a little over a year since I finally got out of that mess with Emily Carter, and I could honestly say I had no regrets, no second guessing, no nostalgia, no curiosity about what she was doing now or how her life turned out, because mine had taken on a whole new light, and that light had a name, Olivia Reed, and another name, our daughter, Sophia Walker, who just turned 1 and had the brightest smile and the chubbiest cheeks and the habit of yelling "DADA" at everything from dolphins to delivery men, but I didn't mind because every time she said it, it reminded me I had made it out, I had built a new life, one with love and peace and baby bottles and late-night cries and tiny fingers grabbing my hair at 3 a.m., and I wouldn't trade it for anything, not even revenge, not even poetic justice, because this domestic chaos was the win I never thought I'd get. Which is why when Olivia suggested we take Sophia to the aquarium for a day out, I was all in, even offered to carry the diaper bag, which is saying a lot considering I used to carry luxury briefcases and now I was hauling around wet wipes and stuffed seahorses, and I was genuinely having a great time watching Olivia point out jellyfish to Sophia and narrating like a National Geographic host when we turned the corner near the mermaid show tank and bam, there she was, standing under the shifting blue lights with Ryan Kim and their daughter Zoe. Like some twisted hallucination from a past life, and for a second I honestly thought I imagined it, but Ryan's eyes locked on mine first, then Emily's followed, and she blinked like she didn't believe it was really me either, then offered that calm, measured smile she always wore when cameras were around, like she was still holding on to some misplaced dignity, and said, "Long time no see, James, you look well," like she didn't remember slapping me across the face or refusing to divorce me or dragging me through emotional purgatory for years, and I wasn't about to fake politeness, but I nodded out of respect for myself, not her, because I didn't want to make a scene in front of Sophia, who was busy pointing at the tank and shouting, "Fish, fish, fish," completely unaware that her father's ex-wife and her mother's former romantic rival were 5 feet away breathing the same recycled aquarium air, and Olivia, bless her soul, didn't miss a beat, gave Emily a short nod, then turned to Sophia and said, "Look, baby, there's a mermaid," to distract her, but Zoe took one look at Sophia, scrunched her nose, and loudly declared, "She's ugly," like she was auditioning for Mean Girl Kindergarten, and Olivia's eyes darkened as she hugged Sophia tighter, then said coolly, "Sweetheart, if you keep saying mean things, your mouth might fall off," which was said in the most polite, "Mom who's done with your BS" tone I'd ever heard, and Zoe immediately flinched and hid behind Ryan, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the artificial coral behind him. While Emily let out a forced, awkward chuckle and muttered, "Sorry, she's been a little spoiled lately," and I thought to myself, yeah, no kidding, but didn't say it, just stared at Emily and thought about how strange it was to see her now without the Carter shine, without the inherited power, without the cold arrogance she used to carry like perfume, and even though she was still beautiful in that distant, untouchable way, there was something hollow about her presence now, something dimmed. Like a candle burnt out but still standing upright, and when she looked at Sophia in Olivia's arms, her gaze lingered a little too long, and she said, almost too softly, "Your daughter's beautiful," and I couldn't tell if she meant it or if she regretted something, or maybe both, but before I could even reply, Zoe snapped again, "She's not," and that's when Ryan lost it, crouched down and started scolding her in front of everyone, hissing through gritted teeth, "How many times have I told you to stop embarrassing us?" While Zoe pouted and screamed, "I hate you," and everyone around us started turning their heads, some even pulling out phones because nothing entertains the public more than a meltdown at a family-friendly venue, and Emily finally raised her voice, not to calm Zoe down, but to shut her up, saying, "That's enough, Zoe, if you can't behave, we're leaving," and the way she said it, cold and final, not even bothering to console or redirect her, just exposed the cracks beneath her calm surface, and in that moment I realized exactly how far she'd fallen, because even at her worst, she used to at least pretend to care, pretend to be above this, and now she couldn't even manage that, and as they walked away, Zoe still crying, Ryan dragging her like a sack of tantrum, and Emily trailing behind like a woman too exhausted to control anything anymore, I felt no satisfaction, no smugness, just a strange kind of peace, like watching a chapter close without needing to turn back. And Olivia leaned in and whispered, "Let's get out of here, this place smells like regret," and I laughed, genuinely, as we walked toward the jellyfish tunnel, Sophia now clapping her hands and shouting, "Mermaid! A mermaid," again like she hadn't just watched a whole soap opera live, and as we walked through that glowing blue corridor with sea creatures dancing above us, I realized this was the life I fought for, the love I earned, the daughter who gave me purpose, and the woman beside me who never tried to change me, only build with me, and when she looked at me and said, "You did good, James. Real good," I believed her, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's stepping stone or backup plan or temporary resemblance of a dead dream. I was a man who tore down an empire of lies and built a home from the ashes, and I wasn't done yet. A year later, I married Olivia Reed in a quiet ceremony by the lake, nothing extravagant, no fireworks, no 100-person guest list, just us, Sophia, and a handful of people who had seen me at my lowest and stuck around long enough to witness my rise, and when Olivia walked down the aisle in a simple ivory dress, barefoot on the grass with a smile that could melt glaciers, I knew without question that this was it. This was the woman I'd rebuild my life with, not because I needed her, not because I was broken or lonely or chasing some illusion of wholeness, but because she saw I saw me for who I was, and chose me anyway, without agenda, without manipulation, without demanding I twist myself into someone more palatable, and I looked into her eyes as we exchanged vows and thought, this is what peace feels like, not silence, not stillness, but presence, clarity, warmth, and after the ceremony, we returned home, not to a mansion filled with secrets, but a home where our daughters' giggles echoed down the hallway, where toys littered the floor and fingerprints smudged the windows and everything smelled like a life well lived, and every night, when I tucked Sophia into her crib, I would pause just for a second and whisper, "You're safe, baby," like I was promising her a future I had once never been sure I could give, and the thing is, I kept that promise not just to her, but to myself, because I didn't claw my way out of hell to carry it with me forever, and yet, the past has a way of creeping back in, not always through drama or revenge, but sometimes through memory, through headlines, through whispers in the dark corners of social media, and that's exactly how I found out what happened to Emily Carter. I wasn't searching, I wasn't checking in like some obsessed ex, but her name came up in a conversation between two investors at a gala Olivia and I attended, and I overheard one of them say, "Did you hear? Emily Carter lost the Carter inheritance. Went full monk mode. Opened a meditation studio downtown. Low-key thriving, though, and I won't lie, I was curious, not because I missed her, not because I wanted her back, but because I needed to know how far the ripple went, how deeply the explosion of truth we unleashed had carved into the lives of those who once held power over mine like a blade at my throat, and so I looked her up. No social media, no press releases, no Carter Foundation name beside hers anymore, just a modest website with a sepia-toned photo of her sitting cross-legged on a mat. Hair tied up, eyes closed, looking peaceful in a way I never once saw when we were married, and below it, a single quote, "True repentance begins where pride ends." That line stayed with me for days, not because I believed it, but because I knew how much pride she used to carry, how she wore it like a second skin, weaponized it like a shield, and I wondered if she really meant those words, or if they were just branding, but in the end, I realized it didn't matter. She wasn't in my life anymore, and what she chose to do with her fall was no longer my concern, and yet, part of me quietly hoped she had found a way to make peace with herself, because if she hadn't, then all of it war, the lawsuits, the fire we set to our old lives would have just left ashes and no regrowth, and I needed to believe that wasn't true, because I had regrown, I had rebuilt, I had become a father, a husband, a CEO, not trapped in a power struggle but leading with clarity, and every time Olivia walked into the room carrying our daughter, or every time Sophia ran toward me yelling, "Daddy," with cookie crumbs all over her face, I felt that weight lift a little more, felt that guilt for staying too long with Emily shrink until it was nothing but a scar, not an open wound, and one afternoon, as I was putting Sophia's shoes on to take her to the park, she looked up at me with that mischievous little smile and asked, "Daddy, where do bad people go?" And I paused, because I didn't want to teach her the world was cruel, but I also didn't want to lie, so I knelt down and said, "Sometimes they go far away, sometimes they get second chances, but most of the time, they learn the hard way and disappear from our lives," and she nodded like she understood, even though I knew she didn't, and she just said, "Okay. Can we go see the ducks now?" And just like that, the moment passed, and I realized that the true end of a painful chapter doesn't come with a bang, it comes with quiet acceptance, with mornings where nothing hurts, with nights where you sleep through without waking up in cold sweats, and the funny thing is, I used to think revenge was the ending, but it wasn't. Healing was, growth was, choosing better and being better was, and Olivia taught me that, not with grand speeches or ultimatums, but with consistency, with warmth, with holding my hand every time I doubted I deserved this happiness and whispering, "You do," and maybe the most ironic twist of all is that I became the kind of man Emily Carter could have only dreamed of having, loyal, successful, deeply loved but never again hers, and she became the woman she once swore she'd never be, stripped of legacy, stripped of status, just a name on a studio flyer no one recognizes unless they're searching for peace, and maybe that's her redemption arc, maybe that's enough for her, maybe that's the real karma, not ruin, but irrelevance, not destruction, but detachment, and as for me, I don't need to see her again, don't need her apology, don't need closure, because I've already closed the door, boarded it shut, and built a new house down the street with lights on and laughter spilling through the windows, where love isn't a transaction, and family isn't a performance. And when I tuck Sophia into bed tonight and feel Olivia's arms wrap around me in the dark, I'll know this is the life I earned, not given, not borrowed, but earned. And no matter how many headlines try to rewrite my story, the people who matter already know the truth, and the truth is simple. I walked through hell, came out burned but not broken, and built heaven with my own two hands.